Splatoon is a great video game series with lots of detail, fun characters, and fast-paced gameplay. Once finishing the Splatoon 3 story mode, however, I got the idea of something. Which Splatoon game had the best story mode? This does include Ogre expansion, by the way. I'm going to rank this by ranking each story mode on 5 subjects related to the mode. These are stories, the levels, bosses, and final boss, and the post-game content, if they have it, that is. The game with the best of that subject getting 4 points, the second best getting 3 points, the third getting 2 points, and the worst getting 1. Whichever game has the highest score at the end will, in my opinion, be the best Splatoon game. And remember, of course, you can have other opinions if you want. And without further ado, I guess, let's start. Splatoon 1's story mode is pretty simple. The Octarians assault on the Great Sapfish, which is Inkopolis' main source of power, and Captain Cuttlefish tasks you with getting it back, guiding you along the way. However, midway through he does get kidnapped and agents 1 and 2 have to help you, who are also apparently the Squid Sisters. Don't tell anyone that. Yeah, a simple story, but it's perfectly fine for the first game. On to Splatoon 2, and it's pretty much the same. The only real difference is that Callie's gone missing and Marie guides you instead of Cuttlefish. However, that does tie into the final Splatfest of Splatoon 1, where it was Callie vs Marie, and it played a role in the story. But other than that, not much else has changed. The Octo expansion completely changes things up though, with you playing as an Octoling who has lost their memory after a battle with Agent 3. You're now stuck in the deep sea metro and have to complete levels to regain your memory, as well as find these weird objects called dangs, which are things that will help you to get to the promised land, which is basically another way of finding the way out of the deep sea metro, I guess. I really like how they completely mix up the story, with you playing as the Octolings, who used to be antagonists, and now you're trying to regain your memory and escape to the surface, rather than just Octo guy style fish must get back. Splatoon 3 is odd compared to the other stories. The Great Zapfish is on again, but not by Octavia this time. It's instead revealed that Mr. Grizz is the villain. He's also mammalized Octavia's entire Octarian army, and you're in a place called Alterna, and you have to get rid of all the fuzzy ooze around the place, and it's sort of like all 3 of the stories mashed together, but it makes them way more interesting than Splatoon 1 and 2, definitely. Plus there's Deep Cut, the idols who are minor antagonists at the story because they want to loot Alterna, but you're sort of just there to save the world. Yeah. And the captain's also been kidnapped. Cuttlefish, yeah. And on the topic of captain as well, the old Agent 3 is the new captain, and you're the new Agent 3. And Cuttlefish is sort of just retired, I guess. And he's been captured again. Like, seriously, I mean, like, he gets captured in every game. Give the man a break. I struggled on deciding which story I wanted to go for as the top, but at the end I decided to go with Splatoon 3 as the best story, with Octo expansion being very close behind, as Grizz I think is a better villain, and the overall plot I just like of how it's all put together, and even Salmon Run being a part of it, with you having your little buddy who's a small fry with you, and the golden eggs being used to create the fuzzy ooze. The Octo expansion is in second because of how Octolings are put in the story, and you have to regain your memory of the world. Both of these stories are great, and I decided to give Splatoon 2 second place because while it's only the same with a few minor details swapped, the Callie vs Marie Splatfest being important to the story is pretty cool, and sorry Splatoon 1. I mean, you're the first game, and you're alright for the first game, it's just you had the least to offer. Next up are the levels. Splatoon 1's levels, when I played them for getting footage of this video, were overall pretty fun. Each level has a theme or obstacle to take on, such as a new enemy or level mechanic, such as the sponges and invisible floors. I like the levels I played, so good job Splatoon 1. Oh yeah, and there was also Octoling and Egg Strike levels, where you take on a horde of Octolings on a turf war map, or you'd have to traverse through an enemy-filled turf war map, similar to the Octolings, but at the end you had to fight an ink-striking Octarian mini-boss, which is pretty cool. Splatoon 2, on the other hand, sort of felt like a copy. Like, the levels weren't as fun and a lot of the themes were very similar to Splatoon 1, or just not that good. Like, I remember one of the levels just being an Octarian on top of a non-moving car, and in otherwise it's like being slightly higher up than usual. Like, that's not really a good level theme, to be honest. The only positive thing I can, I guess, say is that you have more weapons to pick from than just a hero shot. Still not really a fan of many of the levels in the story mode, personally, though. The Octo expansion, however, took a different approach. The levels were a lot harder compared to Splatoon 1 and 2's, which were overall pretty easy. And these levels, on the other hand, have some new objectives as well, such as breaking boxes to match an image, escorting an 8-ball to the goal without it falling, or breaking targets. While the difficulty with some levels was infuriatingly hard, the levels become more memorable and fun because of it. Unless if you get so mad that you want to throw your controller out the window. Splatoon 3 had a similar approach to their levels as Octo Expansion, with the levels having certain objectives or themes again. While both games did have normal get-to-the-goal levels, they're more unique, you know, but they're not barely as hard as Splatoon 3's levels. It's still fun. And I'd also just like to point out the fact that when you're doing levels that your little buddy isn't actually a part of, he stands in the lobby area and watches you. He's such a good little boy. I had to give Octo Expansion the win for this round just due to their difficulty and uniqueness, and also the fact that there's over 80 levels compared to all the other levels having around 30, I think. With Splatoon 3 in second place, only behind Octo Expansion because the levels weren't as difficult and there's less of them, and Splatoon 1 in third, and Splatoon 2 in fourth. As Splatoon 1's levels were alright, and Splatoon's levels weren't, but the other two just had better levels in them games. Next up is the bosses. I'm going to explain each boss vaguely as I go through, starting with Splatoon 1. The Octo Stomp, he doesn't really need much of an introduction really, I mean, he's in every single game anyway. And all he does is try to stomp on you and you climb back up to attack him. I think it's a good first boss. The Octo Nozzle is second, and Jesus Christ, this thing is super easy. You just shoot his weird nubbin things on his body and then attack his weak spot. Arguably the easiest boss in the series. The Octo Whirl is next, and with him you just have to turf the floor that he'll roll in as he rolls into you, exposing his weak spot. Cool concept, pretty easy though. The Octo Maw is a giant fish, which FYI scared me a lot as a wee little boy. Anyway, he'll swim into the stage, try and eat you, then you have to break out by destroying his teeth and throwing a bomb in his mouth. Very painful, and very similar to the Moors and Salmon Run. On to Splatoon 2. First up is the Octo Oven. All you have to do is dodge his attacks when he sticks his weird pieces of bread out at you, and then you climb up and attack him. Why is this reminding me of something? The Octo Samurai is next, and I think he's quite cool. He's fighting you with a Splat Roller, which is the same weapon that you have, and his attacks can be quite vicious. And they also have to point out the fact that he's running a unicycle. I love this boss. Octo Stomp is back with a new dash stomp, as well as a weird coat stopping you from climbing up his sides. Why did they bring him back? I have no clue. Lastly is the Octo Shower. You have to shoot down all the Octocopters carrying him with a charger to expose his weak spot. Well, this is all while he's sending missiles and a minigun to splat you, and also rushing at you with a nice shower thing. Just kidding, it kills you. Octo's expansion's bosses are all remakes of Splatoon 2's bosses, which does take a few points down for being copies, but these bosses are all much harder, with Octo Oven and Octo Stomp being much tougher and spawning enemies to help them, making them a real threat. Meanwhile, with Octo Samurai and Shower, you have to beat them using specials, which sounds easy, but actually makes them quite harder. With Shower, you have an Inkjet, which means you no longer have subs or a charger, plus not only that, but you're floating in the air, and well, your weird Inkjet projectiles are much slower, making this boss more challenging. Meanwhile, for Samurai, you have the Baller, meaning that one swing from the sky can fling you right off the map, because in analogy, he pretty much has a baseball bat, and you're pretty much a baseball, because, yeah, he flings you around so much. And this forces you to play a more evasive style, and with nothing but slow explosions to attack him, this boss takes a while to defeat. Next up is Splatoon 3, and firstly is Octavia, who is picking a fight with you because he thinks you stole his minions, and however, it's insanely easy. It's just a downgrade from his two other fights. I mean, I know it makes sense as one, he's the first boss, and two, he no longer has the power of the Great Zapfish, but it's just really uninteresting. They could have done something with like a sandstorm or anything, but no, it's just nothing. It's kind of sad, to be honest. The other three fights with Deep Gut, which I also like to mention, they have different dialogue when refighting them. Fry has her attack you with her eels in different ways, such as swimming along the ground, coming at you with high speed, or just sending all of them at once, like you just threw a rock at a beehive. Also, why is Fry riding the unalived corpse of Octostomp? Like, man, that's insanely dark, but also kind of cool, sort of, I guess, depending on how you think about it. Shiva's next, and she rides her pet master Mega, riding you in multiple ways, such as firing projectiles from ink in the sea, coming at you in just like a Morse, and also this weird tornado attack, but I found them all very easy to dodge and counter. Big Man is last, and I also find it funny how he says that if he doesn't fight you, Fry and Shiva will yell at him. Poor Big Man. Anyway, onto the fight, and wait, is that the Phantom Manta from Super Mario Sunshine? Yeah, I think it is. And you have to break down parts of the Manta Ray until you find Big Man, which I don't really understand, like, the difficulty part of this. Like, he just throws bombs at you, and that's pretty much it. I don't really understand that. Like, is there meant to be something else? Like, I don't understand it. I sort of just felt like you're just shooting the ground. The game with the worst bosses, in my opinion, was Splatoon 1, due to them being pretty easy and less memorable. Splatoon 2 is next because the bosses such as Samurai are quite memorable, and the difficulty was, I'd say, cranked up to about medium, except for Octo, other than that boss is easy. In second is Splatoon 3, as fighting the idols as well as Octavia was a really cool detail, and it worked well with the story, but I still don't really find them that difficult, compared to Octo Expansion, which is in first, mainly due to their difficulty, and, well, fighting the bosses and using your specials is a really cool thing. I like that a lot. Next up is the final bosses and ending. Splatoon 1 has you go up to space for some reason, or at least it seems like space. Up there you will find Captain Cuttlefish held captive, as well as the Great Sapfish. However, on approaching it, you are revealed to the main villain, the Octarian leader, and Cuttlefish's nemesis, DJ Octavio. The fight has you reflecting his punches as your main way to attack him, but that's not all. He sends missiles with every single punch. He sends his minions to fight, has you do platforming to reach him, have you used many mechanics from the previous levels to help, such as invisible floors, sponges, gushers, and those weird inkwell things. He also sends giant bombs with you, and you basically have to play tennis with him, and he also often sends killer whales. After a long battle, the music changes and everything gets way more intense than it already was. The Calamari incantation begins playing, and even Cuttlefish and Octavia begin uncontrollably jamming to it. All of Octavia's attacks become much faster and more intense, constantly sending fists, missiles, enemies, and killer whales your way. Plus, the path you follow him to begins to get much narrower, forcing you to really just use all the space you have to dodge his attacks. But to finish, you have one last game of ping pong to see who's the freshest cephalopod. And then Splatoon 2 sort of just throws all that out of the window. I mean, Callie is here alongside Octavio, and the Rainmaker bit at the end are the only real positives I can think of. I mean, the battles are a lot less tense, his attacks are slower, he no longer has missiles or killer whales along with every punch, and then rather than chasing down a big stage, the stage is just a circle, and while he does throw bombs and rushes at you like the Octo Shower, they're pretty to dodge. Heck, even Marie says jokes about how bad his moves are. And the final phase is pretty cool with you using an inkwell and the Rainmaker, but it's still pretty easy. You just shoot his normal fist and then jump over the spinning ones. This fight is just really underwhelming compared to Splatoon 1, and it's just a downgrade, to be honest. Octo Expansion starts off with a telephone creating some weird machine which is supposedly to take you to the promised land, but it's pretty easy to tell it's just a blunder. Right before you get sliced into an Octo smoothie, Agent 3 comes to the rescue, which is a really cool scene. And now Agent 3 is in a delusional coma. Anyway, you go off to find a way out of this underground area, while Cuttlefish stays back to take care of Agent 3. You go through these different phases of this weird facility-like area, with the first one being with you having no weapon at all, and you're pretty much just sneaking around swimming through the ink, almost like a spy. It's all fun and games until you're actually found, though. Come here, Ma! The next phase has you going around to look for a weapon, giving you sorts of puzzles to do. Not really much else, though. Phase 3 has you go through this weird area where there's like a bunch of like Octarians being sanitized, and it's kind of weird. And yeah, it's just odd. But yeah, most of the area is tricky platforming, having you jump and swim from one capsule to another. The next phase has you manoeuvring through these weird lasers, using accurate jumps as well as your Ogden form to swim through the walls and decrease your hitbox, allowing you to slip through the gaps. It's very sort of like James Bond, Mission Impossible sort of style, which is I like. It's also during this phase where the broken phone wakes up and it's absolutely livid that you foiled his plans, kidnaps Cuttlefish and Agent 3 another time. Yes, seriously, like, man needs to stop getting kidnapped. Anyway, phase 5 gives you an inkjet, and your task is to break all the weird pen-looking things around this weird area. I have no idea what they actually are, but, you know, whatever. Anyway, doing this will release a baby Zapfish, where in the next section, you have to move along a platform, protecting the fragile Zapfish from enemies, which can get stressful at times. Anyway, at the final phase, you find a tied-up Cuttlefish, and as well as Agent 3. But this isn't the Agent 3 you once knew. He's been brainwashed by the phone, and you have to fight a 1v1 style with them. They have bombs, good aim, and also uses a lot of specials, and for some reason they have dodge rolls, even though they don't have dualies, which is kind of stupid if you ask me. But, you know what, whatever. Once taking him out, he's once again gone back into his coma, and Pearl and Marina are here to pick you up in their chopper. While Pearl and Captain Cuttlefish are having a stupid rap battle, a giant statue comes out of the ground with a telephone, who we now know as Commander Tartar inside. The statue is going to fire a giant laser onto Inklopolis, and it's your job to turf the entire thing and decrease its energy, along with the help of Off the Hook and Cuttlefish. And Agent 3's sleeping through the entirety of it. I mean, he's just tired. The fight begins, and you have 3 minutes to blow up all of Marina's bombs that she places on the statue to turf it. The music is upbeat, and it keeps you pumped as you traverse along the statue. While there's no enemies or anything like actually to fight you, the difficulty comes in mistakes, as one wrong move can mean the end for Inklopolis, especially in the last minute. You're ready to blow up 10 blooming bombs on Inkrels, and you only have a minute to do it. One mess up could lose it all here, and getting through all of it and saving Inklopolis feels great. Once your job is done, Pearl takes over and it's absolutely demolishes Tartar, his statue, and it's all his hard work with just to kill a while. Inklopolis is saved, everyone's happy, and Agent 3 is finally awake. Great way to end the DLC. The last ending we tackle is Splatoon 3, and after the captain gets rid of all the fuzzy ooze surrounding the rocket, they hurt themselves again. Like, dude, you need to be more careful, like, seriously. Deep got sharp again wanting the treasure, and you just give it to them because you don't really need it anymore, and they begin to feel, like, upset or something. I don't really understand, to be honest. Yeah, if anything, they just have a skill issue. Then they join your team and you have to climb up the rocket in phases pretty much identical to the outdoor expansion. The first phase has you have no hero gear at all, and your only weapon is Small Fry. He's a very useful weapon though, and you have to take out enemies as well as complete puzzles with him. After that is the area where you have to beat the heck out of Octarians using all the specials you can possibly dream of. very fun and very satisfying, absolutely demolishing your enemies. The next phase is this elevator segment where enemies come at you on your way and you must take them out, and it's kind of easy and a tad boring. Yeah, the final area is split into two parts, with the first having you climb up the rocket in like a spiral, taking out enemies and moving around the fuzzies along the way. The second part makes you collect energy cores in the rocket using the Zipcaster, which is a lot of fun and forces you to be quick with snipers and other enemies shooting at you. The one thing I've left until now is to say is that in between each phase you can hear chat between Cuttlefish and Grizz, with Grizz having a villain speech about stuff he says he wants, like, about like what he's done to get so far about like Grizzco and like making us like work really hard and all that. But yeah, whatever. I don't really understand it, to be honest. But yeah, when you finally reach the top, Cuttlefish is dead. And before you get a chance to mourn, the villain of the humongous CEO of Grizzco appears. Seriously, look at this unit. Then he flies off in his rocket because he's the worst, telling you that the world will end soon while doing so. Back to Cuttlefish, the squid sisters and the captain are mourning him while you're sort of just in the background, sort of just sitting there. And the captain cries on him and yay, Cuttlefish is back. And he's a squid now, but I mean, at least he's okay. With the world ending and no one having a plan, Deep Cut rolling and help out with Fry creating a swell of eels, Shiver offering you Master Mega as a sick ride, and Big Man who gives you a little helmet. How sweet. With your new ripped out Agent 3 and also Small Fry, you sail into space with Stop Grizz. You land on a fuzz-filled rocket with a menacing grizzly bear on the other side. The fight begins and you have to traverse the rocket, collecting golden eggs and getting rid of Fuzz to get close to Grizz, while having to deal with missiles, ink strikes and enemies. He also rotates the rocket, forcing you to traverse around it. And also, for some reason, the gravity only works on one side of the rocket, which, I mean, I'm pretty sure I learned different in science. Yeah. When close enough, you have to shoot the spots on Mr. Grizz's belly, exposing a fuzzball, which Smallfry will consume. Kind of disgusting, to be honest. While he attacks you with his claws. Each phase gets harder, with him even firing a giant killer whale and you in the final one. But after this, Grizz isn't done yet, and the rocket explodes, launching you into space. But Octavia returns to save you and help fight Grizz. Small Fry also evolves into Huge Fry, which I mean, like, bro, what is this Pokemon? And now you both have to work together as Agent 3 and Octavia to assist Huge Fry as he fights Grizz by using an ink vac to get rid of the fuzzballs on his body. You have 3 minutes and 33 seconds, which is more than enough time. To be honest, it's really easy, but whatever. All of this must be done while avoiding fake fuzzballs and defeating enemies that spawn on the ship. Unleashing the final blow on Grizz is very satisfying, and serves him right for the way he treated us in Splatoon 2 Salmon Run. Being in space is really cool, and the new remix of Calamari Incantation is just as great as the other two. An amazing final boss. Splatoon 2 is easily the worst final boss in my opinion, just because of how underwhelming it is compared to the others. And the other 3 are all amazing, but I had to give it to Splatoon 1 as the best, just due to the high intensity throughout the entire fight, and even though I didn't actually find it really hard at all, I still found it really intense and I really enjoyed it. Going across platforms and structures to get to Octavia and using the mechanics used throughout the adventure to help you is really cool. And with Splatoon 3 in second, mainly just due to the space aesthetic, and also I personally just think that Mr. Grizz is a better, in my opinion, a better, more memorable villain than Tartar. The last round is post-game content. Splatoon 1 and 2 don't really have anything at all. I mean, in both games you can rewatch the credits and look at Octavio stuck in a snow globe, but that's pretty much it. Well, I mean, in Splatoon 2 you can get hero weapon replicas, but that's only by beating every single stage with that weapon, and I totally didn't waste my time getting every single hero weapon. Oh no, it couldn't be me. Octo Expansion has a nice secret in its post-game. After completing every level, you can go back to the lockers in Central Station. By investigating them, a boss begins. Inner Agent 3. This one is pretty much the same as the other one, except it's on steroids. It has impeccable aim, constantly spams auto bombs, and has a lot of specials which he can constantly use. These 3 things combined along with his dodge rolls and overall insane AI, make for an infuriatingly hard boss battle. Heck, hard enough to the point where I just took a break and when recording I just took a break. I just couldn't beat it and I had to do it again tomorrow. However, it's kind of funny though, because on my second, when I tried again tomorrow, I beat him in 3 tries. But I mean, this boss is still really hard, and But it feels really good beating him. I got him on like my third try. Yeah. Oh my god, that. Yeah. Oh my god. Yes, screw you, Winner Agent 3. You can go. I don't know. Die because I beat you despite the fact you have so many supers. Yeah, boy. Anyway, Splatoon 3's postgame is very similar to Octo Expansion. Man, Splatoon 3 story mode is just Octo Expansion, but fuzzy bears, a very hungry fish in space. Anyway, after beating every level in the story again, you get a new level called After All Turner. The level is split into 4 phases with no checkpoints in between other than, well, those 4 checkpoints. The first level is a normal level with the difficulty cranked up, with you most likely to fail on this part by making some sort of mistake, or at least that's what happened for me. The next area is a target shooting on rails, similar to ones with a stringer in the base game, but much harder. The targets come quite quick, forcing you to stay focused and having intense parts like constantly jumping between rails to reach the targets, and a leap of faith at the end where you have to destroy all the targets in midair before you fall into the water. The third area has using the soaker blocks that are used in cool ways, like them blocking your path and you just shoot in the right amount so it doesn't come back and destroy your ride. The last area is you having to take out hordes of octolings, which I hated this part. I found it long, hard, and insanely frustrating. So much to the point where, again, I had to take a break. But rather than continuing it, like with Inner Agent 3, I just gave up. I literally just ended up just finding some footage off of YouTube and just doing it that way instead. I absolutely hated that part. Anyway, decent level even though the octolings exist. Beating this feels great, and the reward you get is for your stuff is the reward you get for beating this is some stuff for your splash tag, a bear headgear thing, and a new After All Turner log giving a very cool, interesting backstory of Mr. Grizz. The Octo expansion takes the top spot with Inner Agent 3 being a great fight, and with forcing you to go back and complete the 80 levels is a good reason to keep on playing. Splatoon 3 is in second as After All Turner is pretty cool, and Mr. Grizz's backstory is a nice reward, even though I hated the Octoling part. Splatoon 2 is in third, as even though the hero weapons are a waste of time and not much to give, honestly, something is better than nothing, I guess, as Splatoon 1 at least is in last because, well, we're at nothing at all. Now it's time to give the final rankings. In 4th place and missing the podium is Splatoon 2, with an okay story I guess, not very fun levels, good overall boss but a bad final boss. The game ended up with a score of 8. In 3rd, just above with 9 points, is the original Splatoon 1, with an alright story for the first game, but compared to the others is lacking a bit. It had good levels, at least from the ones I remember playing, easy bosses, but an excellent final boss. I think it's alright for the first game, and hey, it didn't get last. I'm going to skip to first, just to make things a bit more exciting, with the winner being just 1 point above second, Octo Expansion. The game had an overall good story, lots of fun and very challenging levels, and whole aesthetic is just really cool, and it definitely deserves its score out of 17 and gives you a good reason to come back to Splatoon 2. Splatoon 3 just missed the top spot, but still had a lot of fun levels, pretty good bosses, a great villain and final boss. Deep Cut was a unique and cool minor antagonist, and it still has an amazing story. 16 out of 20 is still an excellent score as well. So yeah, that's my ranking. I really hope you enjoyed this video because it took me a long time to make, with lots of things getting away, delaying it, such as my birthday or homework. Well, sorry if my voice sounded off. I had a cold throughout some of the recording of the audio, and my phone mic just isn't good anyway. And on the topic of birthdays as well, it's my channel's 3-year anniversary in a few days, and I think I'll try to get something special for that. Thanks again for watching, and why not subscribe and check out my other videos as well, because it's free, easy, and helps me out, and it means a lot to me. Anyway, I guess I have nothing else to say, so see you next time.